So go ahead, get pretty close up on the mic so that you can like tilt it and stuff. We want to get it as high, as most volume as we can.
Capture as much as possible.
That's right. Get really close to the microphone.
This is the radio show.
Marco and Marty in the morning. Flash. All right.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Hey to all you Mar maniacs out there. That's the name I just invented for my fandom, and I really hope it sticks. All right, guys, it's August, and on August 23rd at 7 p.m. at Pangea on the Lower East Side, my group, the Wes Anderson Project, is giving our first public performance. I'm super excited about it. If you go to PangeaNYC.com, you can get tickets there. And they wrote this really great description that is even better than the one I came up with. Let me read it to you guys. Jazz bassist Marty Eisenberg, which is me, leads the Wes Anderson Project, a stellar band exploring the notable, eclectic, and quirky repertoire of music in Wes Anderson's films, rearranged for jazz instrumentation. The Clinton Hill Music School founder and host of the podcast Between the Gigs captures this mixtape of Anderson vibe, roaming, careening, and questing through the music from the Velvet Underground, Nick Drake, Elliott Smith, The Zombies, ETAL, I don't know what that means. Marty Eisenberg's Wes Anderson Project, Friday, August 23rd at 7 p.m. Be there. Hello, people of the world. This is Marty Eisenberg, and you are listening to Between the Gigs. My guest today is Marco Frey. Hey, Marco.
Hey, what's up, man?
So Marco is a drummer, Brooklyn-based here in New York. We've been friends for a couple of years. I first met you when you were hosting the jam session at Fifth State.
Oh, yeah, man.
While that place was still around.
Those are memories.
Yeah. Marco is the drummer with the Revenge of the Cool Nonette, the Ding and X Street Band. He's going on tour with Kevin Daniels next month in August. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about what that tour is going to be?
Yeah, so...
Who's Kevin Daniels?
Kevin Daniels is a Americana, scruffy beard, Amerikaner type,
Oh, okay.
He's a singer-songwriter, and he loves to strum that acoustic guitar.
Oh, he loves to strum that acoustic guitar. I love to hear that.
But we got a bit more of like a louder rock band like behind him, and he just released his second album, which I'm not on. It's more like I'm more of a hired gun for this tour.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. I think I don't think I mentioned this yet. You were also the drummer for the Merry Variety Show at Club Cummings. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was, man, I was kind of in a slump 2 summers ago, and I remember thinking, man, I could really use it like a regular gig. And weirdly enough, like a week later, I just get a random Facebook message from the director of this variety show. He was just getting it started. He met up with kind of like a famous like gay club promoter, and they teamed up to put together this variety show. It was like a whole lot of fun, and I did it for a year straight every week.
Right, and it was a pretty like late gig, as I recall, right?
Yeah, it was a roller coaster. It had plenty of foibles.
Yeah,
for sure. It paid about $150 per gig. However, you have to take into account we had these enormous rehearsals because every week we had new repertoire.
Oh, wow. So what was like an enormous rehearsal?
It would be like these like 4-hour sessions. Oof. And they'd have to schedule all like the singers and like acts to come through our rehearsal space.
Was it the day of the gig or?
It was usually the day before the gig. And it was like in Bushwick. We had to coordinate like up to 7 people to like go to one location to rehearse.
Yeah, wow. But still, for a weekly gig, $150, that's not bad. I mean,
yeah,
as far as it goes. Anyway, so we're talking today about being a jazz musician in the digital age. Yeah. Marco's been doing some pretty deep dives into digital marketing and that world. Before we go too far into that, I want to tell you how much I enjoy your playing. And I was
Thanks,
trying to
man.
think about, like, it's really difficult sometimes to put into words, like, why you like the way someone plays. And it's really, like, it's just a feeling. Like, it feels good whenever I play with you or whenever I hear you play. But I'm going to attempt to try to put it into words. I think what I like so much about your playing is that in addition to having a really comfortable like sound and feel, like you do a really good job of the music always just feels so free when you're in the rhythm section. Like you're have a fluency to like get out of patterns and like add new material, but in a way that always feels never forced and leaves space for other people to sort of like go with you. And it's like you're saying, like, I know the game. I'm gonna like put this little twist on it, but I'm gonna give you guys time to react to it and make it a part of what's going on. Anyway,
Man,
I like it.
That's awesome, dude. It reminds me of like when we sat in the other night at Bar Chord, which was a jam session I hadn't been to for about 2 years.
Yeah.
I used to go there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a time, I think it felt, I don't know when it was, but a few years ago, I felt like every time I went to a jam session in Brooklyn, like you were either in the house band or like at the session already.
Yeah, I was a session rat for sure. And
do you
like
still go to a lot of sessions?
Man, no. Like a lot of us, I think a lot of us get burnt out on it.
Yeah, it's tough, It's interesting because I sort of relate it to some other, creative communities, like, comedians, they have like open mics and stuff like that. And there's certain, like, you get validation by just being out there a lot. When people see you a lot, they're like, oh, that guy's everywhere,
Yeah.
And in the jazz community, it's like that. Like, oh, Marco, he's everywhere. But other than us at the session, like, there's no one else that, is following it closely. Or at least that's the way it feels sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, all right. So that's a good place to get into like why digital marketing is an important part about being a jazz musician in this age, and also just sort of an interesting thing that we're all dealing with, especially people in our generation. Not that we're millennials also, but when I graduated from school 10 years ago, graduated from college. It was before a lot of these, Instagram really took over and things like that. I look back and I had a band that I was leading out of college that I was so into. I loved this project and I was putting so much energy into like going out and trying to get gigs and like having weekly rehearsals and things like that. And if I were someone graduating college now, I'm not even sure I would be trying to book a gig. I would be trying to make like a YouTube video, that's a cheaper, easier way to reach a much wider audience,
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I saw that you had posted this video blog about a project that you had proposed to Ari Honig about doing some digital marketing for him. And in the blog, you talked about how you had gotten rejected for this, or at least your project had not been taken on. And it was a really interesting video where you sort of talked a lot about how you were feeling and, the difference between yourself and Ari, both creatively, talent-wise, generationally.
Yeah.
I thought it was super cool. And I was wondering, it seemed like a place to launch this broader conversation, but could you sort of tell us a little bit more about what this project was that you brought to Ari, and then what his reaction to it was, or his assistant's reaction to it?
Yeah. Well, man, yeah, it's a perfect segue because, well, I have to do a final project for my digital marketing class,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it's like you come up with a great marketing proposal for whatever company you decide. I kind of thought outside the box because I'm so interested in like personal brands. And I thought, well, Ari has like a pretty good following, and most of it's just organically because he's already jazz famous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I've been doing this thing where I just like reach out to people on Instagram DMs,
Mm.
and that's sometimes like surprisingly effective.
Mm. Who else
And
have you reached out to?
um, I reached out to the current company I finally found for my final project.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've reached out to like to Dario even. Like
Mm.
I've reached out just to I kind of just say why not?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's just so easy,
Yeah.
and half the time people ignore you, but only takes like 1 out of 100,
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
right? So anyways, he got back to me and he was interested. He was definitely interested, and he's like, well, I mean, ideas are great, but what I really need help with is implementing them. And I'm like, well, this is free work that I'm giving away. Like, I'm basically going to give you a proposal. I can't like put in all the legwork for
Mm-hmm.
you. And then his assistant chimed in because she has access,
Mm-hmm.
and she was in there in the DMs, and she was like, this sounds interesting. Like, let's meet up. And we met up. Like, I biked all the way across the park to meet her, and I could already tell that it was kind of like, well, listen, Ari doesn't really need the kinds of tactics you're learning in this digital marketing class. And I try to find some ways to like maybe convince her otherwise. But I realized like Ari's just came up during a different time.
Yeah.
He's got a built-in following because he basically used his gig at Smalls every week for, I think he told me like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, that's content marketing in
Right.
itself. If you have
Yeah.
a regular gig, that is content marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you can piggyback off that. Now he does like master classes, and
Right.
he has a Patreon account.
Oh, he does. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So a lot of his social and online presence now is to kind of guide people to his Patreon,
Mm-hmm.
where people can subscribe to his educational videos.
Right.
And like, I guess my plan would have been to try to optimize like how he's capturing people and entice them to subscribe.
Can you go into detail what that means a little bit?
Yeah, so like I think Ari's has a nice like authentic presence on Instagram, for example. Um, but it's like there's a lot of things you could do, and for example, like you could create a landing page on your website,
Mm-hmm.
basically giving away maybe a free video
Mm-hmm.
in exchange for someone's email address,
Mm-hmm.
and then you keep them in the loop, and you basically provide content through
Oh,
like
that's cool.
an email newsletter, getting people excited, giving away some great value for free, in hopes that like maybe 1 out of 100 people reading it subscribe to your Patreon.
Right.
So you create these pathways to whatever like digital product you might be offering.
Mm.
I think the tricking thing in jazz is that you have to have that digital product, and a lot of us just aren't thinking that way
Yeah.
just quite yet.
I think there's another part of it too. I have a thought about, but
Yeah.
what does that digital product mean to you?
Man, I've been thinking about that a lot, and a lot of us are selling this vague idea of who we are,
Right. Yeah.
which is great, but it takes a long time.
Yeah.
Like 10, 15 years to develop an online presence of it's like vibe.
Right.
Like you can just sell your vibe as a musician, but it's going to
Yeah.
take a while.
Yeah.
But if you need to make money in the meantime, you should maybe do some online courses, or you could have an ebook that you sell, you put together.
Yeah.
Other people kind of act as these like super connectors.
Mm.
For example, like I feel like what you're doing has the potential. You're bringing a lot of musicians into this studio, and you get to like talk, and in that sense, it also expands your reach
Right.
on the internet. And this is almost like a form of content marketing for Marty,
Yeah, I
or
guess it is.
possibly your music school. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and all the various projects I have,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, what I think is unique to the like jazz conundrum.
Yeah.
When I think of digital product, I think of two things. I think of your creative work, which typically as a product means recording or maybe
Yeah.
booking your band for gigs and stuff. And then the how to be me side of the thing, which is the education, how to play jazz, which
Yeah.
becomes such a huge part of what jazz musicians have as a product to sell. And like the best current example I can think of that is like Chad Lefkowitz Brown,
Yeah.
who's like this killing saxophone player and who's gotten some of those like crazy gigs, like being in Taylor Swift's band and things like that.
Yeah.
But in order to, well, maybe not just in order to, but part of his product that he sells is how to play like him, and he knows how to use new media and digital technology to make these really not only videos that are very clean from an educational perspective, but also just know how to use the current technology better than anybody else to make videos where like the notes are on the bottom of the screen with certain things highlighted.
Yeah.
Like, this is how I do this. This is how I do that. And kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, he's crushing it, basically.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that what the byproduct of that in a certain way, I mean, he is crushing it, like, and it's awesome, and it helps build his brand and make him a bigger name in the jazz world.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a little bit of a backlash to that amongst some jazz musicians, which is, unfortunately, the jazz marketplace is other musicians or other aspiring musicians or other people that are educated in music for the most part. Is that I know plenty of musicians who think less of Chad than they do of somebody else who doesn't have that kind of name recognition because he focuses on social media and not the craft or some bullshit. That's not what I think. I think that he's someone who deserves everything he gets because he's such an amazing talent. But
I mean, probably, first of all, he's probably laughing all the way to the bank.
Right. I'm sure he doesn't care. Or maybe he does. Everybody wants that validation from everybody else. But he probably gets enough.
You should probably get him on here and ask him yourself.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
It'd be great.
Played with him
I'd love to ask him about this stuff, too.
Yeah.
Because as much as I have taken a deep dive into this, like, my own following isn't that great yet. And, like, I think it's just a huge debate in the jazz world right now in terms of like the old school way of like paying your dues, like developing relationships with the old cats and like being out there on the scene all the time, keeping your expenses super low, living in deep Bushwick. Like just being physically present everywhere.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I think me and a lot of people, a lot of my peers feel like that's just not us.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, man. Because I did my taxes 4 months ago, and like I just, whatever I've been doing up to this point just was based on kind of like a hope and a wish and not really on a strategy. And I'm I just turned 29, and I'm thinking of ways
Mazel.
yeah, I'm thinking of ways to make this more sustainable.
Yeah.
And I just got so burnt out on traveling through the subway system every night, and like the instability of my schedule, my sleep, um, just a whole lot of things. And like none of that stuff will make you money,
Mm-hmm.
at least not for a while.
Yeah.
And it's a huge investment, and I just think I either I squandered it, or like I don't know, or maybe just that kind of bohemian like way of navigating the city is just, it has its limits.
Yeah, and we're coming up in a time that's very different than the last generation of musicians.
Yeah.
I think that this
New York's
idea
expensive.
New York is
Super.
it's
It's
not
just
an
getting
artist
more
city
expensive.
anymore. And in addition to that, like, the number of jazz clubs has dried up. The revenue from recording industry has dried up. There's a lot of things that are different. And
Yeah.
I feel like I took kind of a different path than some of my peers in some ways. Like, I did all these things in my 20s to create a sustainable career. Like, I started the music school, which
Yeah.
meant a lot of teaching. I found my way into a lot of private event work where I'm playing a lot of private clubs, which earns me money, and I got
Yeah.
into musical theater, which also earns me money.
Yeah.
But that's not. I don't know. Is that a brand I can sell? The fact that I'm just playing gigs. I mean, I know how to play my instrument, and I can. I think that in
You could
terms
share
of,
your journey.
I could share my journey, and that's part of what I hope to do with this podcast. But
Yeah.
like, really, I want to be doing the creative work of like creating original content, being involved in other people's original music and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's stuff for everybody these days, and always,
yeah.
probably.
Yeah. I mean, the lesson from Ari was like, he just doesn't need to do as much on social other than just be himself
Right.
to be effective. However, I want to make the hypothesis that whatever Ari did to get where he is now, if he tried to do that now in 2019, I don't think it would be as effective.
Yeah.
And that,
Well, do you think you could get a weekly gig at Smalls, being 23 or 25,
maybe I could. It would be like a bit of like, you just get lucky, or
Yeah.
or how much do you have to hang out at Smalls
Right.
late at night, not getting paid, like losing sleep, until you get that weekly gig.
Right.
And then even that weekly gig, we both know, let's be honest, Smalls gigs don't pay a lot.
No, they don't. And that's,
I just think there's a huge mentality in jazz where it's like you have to suffer.
Right.
There's like a veneration of suffering.
Well, I think that's true of all the arts in a way,
Yeah.
Got to pay your dues to sing the blues. But like where that all leads at this point in time is a little bit different. It's like you're paying your dues to pay your dues somewhere else. It's like you work so hard to get that gig at Smalls. You hang out every night. You spend $20 a night going there and drinks and
Yeah.
not sleeping and, I guess having another job to support yourself. And then you get that gig and
And that's also just a form of
right.
paying your dues.
And then where do you go after Smalls? Like what's left after Smalls? There's like festival gigs and stuff. I mean, I'm sure Brad Meldow's doing fine, but it's like
Yeah. Exactly. The Brad Meldow's of the world, like bless him. That's amazing.
yeah,
Good for him.
yeah,
But the horrible thing about having idols is that we can't always learn. I feel like there's a bias with success.
yeah.
Successful people often rewrite their own histories because
I want to hear more about that.
you know what I mean? Like a lot of it is luck, and not to diminish hard work and talent, all that stuff, but a lot of it's like being at the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
being discovered.
Mhm.
But like once you're successful, then sometimes people get distorted in the stories they tell about themselves.
Sure.
And they focus on the hard work part and like, this is what I did. And they don't really admit to the luck parts as much.
Right.
And if you just want to break it down in statistics, maybe 1 to 2% of all jazz musicians are just making a living, like touring the world and like just performing.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the dream. That's the dream
That
we
is
all
the dream.
hold on a huge pedestal of like, I just want to play all the time. I want to play creative music that I love for the world to adore. And like, that's amazing. But like, let's like the economics of it are like, it's a 2%, 1%.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like this conversation is getting a little depressing.
Sure.
But just to put things in perspective, I think that, you know, I talked about this with my conversation with Eric Reeves, and one of his, you know, things that he said was there are two things to search for in a music career. One is fulfillment, and the other is, you know, finances. And I do think, you know, I sit across from Marco Frey, who is someone I think is an amazing musician and who many people here in the scene think is incredible. You know, like, we all want, you know, those kind of careers where you get to play in front of big audiences where they're screaming your name, or like, you know, listening to your music or someone's music that you're passionate about. But, you know, it is a life worth living to be able to play music for a living and just get to that level of knowledge that few people have the opportunity to reach, because it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, man.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that humbling statement, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something else, but I forget what it was.
The glory, man. I just
glory.
want a little more glory in my life.
More glory.
That's all.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for it. Other people are more humble. But I think a lot of us don't want to admit that we do want to play in front of like an audience that cares.
Yeah, of course. Of course we do.
I guess I'm just exploring this hypothesis that maybe social media is the way to find the audience that cares about our output.
Well, it definitely is a venue for that, because, you know, the music community is always kind of like niche in little areas, you know, and when you can connect to lots of little niches all over the world, then you cobble together a community that's big enough to, you know, take an interest in what you're doing.
Yeah.
What do you think about, do you see a difference between using social media to sort of share your life with friends in your community versus using social media to like build your brand as an artist? Is there a difference?
Man, that's such a... I have 1,000 thoughts on this, and I still don't know where I stand.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I think I'll try to describe two different approaches. Like, one approach is you just showcase all of you on social media. You are willing to be vulnerable and show yourself your other interests and show that you're a well-rounded human being on this journey, and like music's an important part of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm doing on Instagram,
right?
And it's really different than a lot of people are doing.
On
the other hand, you could get like an Instagram business page, and you get that tag that says musician, band, and if you go that route, people put out only like polished content, or like only videos of them playing guitar, like every video.
Right.
And I think that second approach is faster. You'll get more likes, you'll get more followers, simply because you're putting out, people know exactly what you're all about.
Right.
And
they
know
like, about what you're selling, at least.
Exactly. It's like, oh, this guy plays one drum beat every day for the whole year, for years and years.
Yeah.
There's actually a guy that's gotten really big just doing that.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that.
But then you got to ask yourself, like, do you really want to be such a narrow like presence online?
Hmm.
I like being autobiographical and like sharing, like more and more I want to share like what my real life is like, and not the fucking like fake PR stuff
Right.
that like we're all putting like this PR image of ourselves out there,
Yeah.
and it'll work for like short-term gains, but I think there's something special to sharing your journey and like being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, the question is like, should you have two accounts? Like one
Yeah.
is just like you as like a sideman bassist,
Hmm.
or me as a sideman drummer, and like separate church and state,
Right.
so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Um, right now I am heavily exploring just being a human being
Right.
on social, and it's kind of a crazy experiment. I've lost a
is.
lot of followers since I
Yeah.
started this vlog.
Oh, really?
Well, not a lot, but definitely
Some people kind of like, oh,
yeah, they're just I think people are confused about who I am.
hmm.
And that's kind of the crux of marketing in general. Is it's easier to market a very specific product
Right.
than it is a broader vibe.
Right.
But I think broader vibe wins out in the long term, and like specific product wins in the short term.
Yeah.
I believe in like giving value for 80% of like what you post, and then maybe 20% you're selling something that people want.
Explain that to me a little bit. Giving
So, like,
value?
Yeah, so like whenever I share my story, maybe somebody can relate to that.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
value, like,
Yeah.
and I'm not asking for anything.
Right.
Or what if I started a blog, be like 5 things I learned, 5 things I would do differently after 5 years in New York City.
Right.
And like obviously I'm putting in the work to write that, but like people can learn from that. That's value, and I'm not asking for anything.
Right.
But maybe after I posted 8 of those, maybe 2 would be like an enticement to like hire me for a gig, or like lead people to my website, or whatever digital product I have, which right now I don't have any.
Right.
But
Well,
maybe I
that's
could write
cool.
an ebook or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, it sounds like part of the, having a product to sell in the digital age is building, the brand of who we are online, and then
Yeah.
once people are into that, then having a product can come a little later. I mean, we can't do everything at once. There's only so much we can do. It's
Yeah.
we got to practice every day. We got to fucking make money. We've got to,
That's the crazy thing. Yeah. That's why sometimes I understand the like keep your head down, be an acolyte, and just practice. I understand that.
Yeah.
Lately I've gotten confused, like, man, I'm spending a lot of time like studying Instagram and studying social.
Yeah.
And like spending a lot of time trying to create content, like videos and stuff and posts, and realizing like, wow, I'm actually not actually playing all that much music.
Yeah. Well, there's always this sort of push and pull back towards, like, I don't know, the basics of being a musician. Like, sometimes I'm practicing a lot, and I have gigs, and I try to make time to practice, and at the end of a couple months, I'm like, wow, I didn't create anything, Like, I've been disciplined, I've done my practicing, I'm getting some things together, but what have I made this year? Like,
Yeah.
and
That's
then
huge.
you spend the time like writing or doing whatever, and you're like, fuck, I didn't practice. I haven't practiced all week. Like, it's just
Yeah, exactly.
it's tough. What do you think about? It seems like a lot of the younger generation jazz musicians are doing some like really weird, funny stuff on the internet with like jazz memes and like YouTube videos, and like making like what is jazz videos, and then something like silly and funny will happen.
Ironic.
Yeah, ironic, sarcastic jazz memes and stuff. Do you have an opinion on that?
It reminds me of a student I have who's about like 20.
Mm.
No, actually, he's more like 17, 18. Um, it's like, meme culture. I think they're like digital natives, and
Mm.
they're
Digital natives. I love that.
yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
a cool marketing term.
Yeah. Oh, is that a real term?
Yeah, people who grew
Grew
up
up. Yeah.
basically like internet was always part of their lives.
Yeah.
We're on the cusp as
Right.
millennials.
Yeah.
Like we still know a time before
Yeah.
we had a cell phone.
Yeah.
It's just, I think in a way that's like, how like baby bears will like play fight.
Baby bears.
I feel like the meme stuff is just them like being social on the internet.
Yeah.
And I don't think they have like a greater marketing strategy.
I think some of them do.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to understand
I
who
think
you're talking about.
Like I'm embarrassed to say I don't know a lot about like YouTube stars and all that stuff, but I think that Adam Neely has some videos where he's kind of funny, and I know that he's created a big, marketplace for himself as like a musician and educator and all those things.
Yeah. I watched some of his stuff. He gives a lot of value. I mean,
yeah.
He goes on these like thought journeys, right?
Mm.
That's kind of like his thing.
Right.
Kind of like Vsauce.
Vsauce? What's that?
He's not a musician, but he's a huge YouTube sensation. Like he goes on these beautiful like 10-minute long thought journeys. Maybe it's around a math topic or astronomy or physics.
Yeah.
He explores sort of like a topic and like thinks about all the possibilities.
Yeah.
But Adam McNeely, I haven't checked out a lot of his stuff, but I guess what is he talking about there? Like he's talking about different issues relating to like music theory usually, right?
Yeah. Stuff like that.
It's kind of like he's kind of like nerding out, right?
Right. Yeah.
And some of it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Some of it's funny, but it's not like all just silliness.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. I wonder, like, I'd love to ask him, what's the correlation between you growing a following and you actually playing gigs? Has it led to you doing what you really love, or have you slowly discovered that what you actually love is just putting out YouTube videos?
Right. That's interesting too. Yeah.
It's like, is it a means to an end, or do you end up kind of discovering, oh, I actually just kind of love, talking in front of a camera and like connecting to people?
Yeah. And I could totally see that. There's, I think, did you ever do like acting or like stuff like that as a kid? Like,
not really. My mom says I was super extrovert as a toddler, as a young kid.
I think that a lot of, musicians tend to be a little bit on the introverted side, but we're also entertainers. Like we love to be the center of attention when we're in control,
Yeah.
So
I'm not afraid to play drums in front of a ton of people.
No.
I think if I had to speak as like a subject matter expert,
yeah,
like if we were having this conversation, but
in
I was
front of
having
people.
if I was having to act like I know everything about social media for jazz musicians, like I would be like, I don't want to give advice. Like I'm still completely like learning about this stuff.
Yeah. When you, so this is kind of related. When I try to take on a creative project at this point, I kind of do it with the understanding that it's for personal fulfillment first. I think if you go into anything these days with like, okay, I'm going to make a lot of money on this, you're going to set yourself up for some expectations that are potentially damaging, unrealistic. But I kind of wrestle with how much to like lean into that versus, I think when you do things for yourself, you give yourself that armor. Like, I'm doing this for myself. Nobody can take away that value.
Yeah.
But knowing that it's armor kind of lends yourself to the self-criticism, like, well, then what's the fucking point? You know, if I'm just doing this for myself, is it selfish? Is it, you know, you're vulnerable to that type of self-reflection. So when you start a creative project, I don't know, do you think about those type of things at all? Like,
totally.
Yeah.
I just checked out a podcast episode from Drummer's Resource. It's a cool podcast. People should check out.
Check it out.
And it was just about the best advice he got from his mentor was as a sideman, and I think as a bassist you can relate. The mentor said, you really should take ownership, start your own band, find your own gigs. And on top of that, he said, don't worry about the repertoire. Don't worry about who you want to hire. Don't worry about any of that. Book the gig first.
Whoa.
Which is crazy. It's a flip, like a total flip.
Yeah.
And I just recently decided, like, man, that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Because I've been, my girlfriend can attest, like I've had this like pet project in mind of like a bossa nova, like really sensual lounge band. Like that's both could be potentially profitable and like I just love bossa and like sensual music like that.
That's cool.
Sort of 60s era. Right?
You ever check out some of those like Gary McFarlane records where he does like lots of bossas and stuff?
I don't know him.
Oh man, Gary McFarlane's underappreciated like jazz composer. He wrote a lot of like big band stuff. He had like a pretty short window of his career because he died kind of young. But yeah, check those out. Those are super cool. I love this idea for you. That's so
thanks,
cool.
man. It took me a while because I realized like what fits in. I did kind of think profit first,
right?
Because I'm just like, you know, as much as I say I just want to be creative, I also think I have to admit I'd like to make money.
Yeah, you got to have those like
music.
You know, other validations as well.
I would like a little hit of that dopamine of like, oh, I just landed a regular gig and it pays well.
Yeah.
And so I thought I don't like the way like jazz is kind of packaged for like hotels.
Right.
We play this kind of idea of jazz that's in everybody's head.
Yeah.
And I find myself on those gigs just like playing just really like basic swing for like the whole gig.
Yeah.
And just feeling super limited.
Yeah.
So I thought I don't want to do like trad jazz either.
Yeah.
Because it's not quite. I love those cats. That's awesome, but it's not really my bag.
Yeah, it's a very specific thing.
And so I thought, you know what? I've been in love with bossa nova for like so long. It's time to like try to expose that.
Yeah. I'm in a similar. I think about projects in a similar way, where you know, you want to find something that inspires you, but yeah, sort of the launching point is like, I want to get some attention for this project.
Yeah.
So I've been working on writing music for like a 5-piece band, like all jazz arrangements of music that come from Wes Anderson films. Because a lot of those songs, like I remember hearing them and just being like, whoa, this is this cool new thing. Like Nick Drake, Velvet Underground, I got introduced through a lot of his music, this music through his films. And totally. I know that, you know, he has a certain appeal in terms of his aesthetic. And a lot of those songs have such interesting harmony that they do lend themselves to like, you know, throw in an odd time signature or like some reharms, you know, and it sounds good.
Totally.
And one of the cool things about doing this podcast is that, you know, just the act of like sort of announcing this idea kind of does hold you to the fact like, well, now I got to fucking do it. You know?
That's how I feel about my vlog, man.
Yeah.
It's weird. I hate it.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit I hate doing it. And if anyone's considering it, like if I can do it, you can too.
Yeah.
I'm not very good on the camera. I'm not that extroverted, and sometimes it feels like I'm on the Truman Show.
Right. Yeah.
Like every aspect of my life is scrutinized.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, yes, I think it's like you're putting that energy in the world, and then people are going to start asking you about it. and then you're gonna be like, oh man, I really gotta get to work on this. I
Yeah.
swear to God, probably a week from now, if someone listens to this podcast, they're gonna start asking me like, hey man, like,
Yeah.
so when's your Bossa
Yeah, let's do
project
that
coming
Bossa
out?
gig. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I hope so. I want to see it. I'm going to ask you about it for sure.
yeah.
Well, do you want to tell me a little bit about this project that you're doing for your final project for marketing with the company, or is it hush
Yeah,
hush?
it's actually music related.
Oh,
So
great.
it might be great. So it took me so long to find a company, but I finally got in touch with Welch Tuning Systems, which is a drum company that started in Colorado, and they've crafted a way to make drums that are tunable using only one knob.
Whoa.
A single knob, a single hand, and you can tune the whole drum because it's made like old school marching snare drums
Yeah.
where you see the strings crossing and stuff.
Hmm.
And that's all connected to one knob. Anyways, it's patented, and I think the company has the potential to like revolutionize the drum industry.
Hmm.
And it's not that obvious to all musicians, but if you're a drummer, you know that it takes forever to tune a drum. And there's up to 8 lugs you tune with a key on each side of one drum.
Hmm.
So what is that, like 16 times 5 drums?
Yeah.
And it takes forever. And you obsess over it,
Mhm.
and you have to coordinate each lug to the other one, and you have to use your ears to like tune it. They're basically solving this whole problem, and you imagine like the possibilities. Like you could be tuning your drums differently per each song during a gig.
Yeah. Wow. That is cool.
Yeah.
How
And
did
like,
you hear about this company?
so yeah, I heard about them through social media.
Mm.
You know, like because I followed drummers and stuff. Like it's kind of the word's kind of getting around organically. People are sharing videos of this technology, and they went to NAMM in Nashville, and they had some like Instagram influencers like JD Beck
Yeah.
play these drums, and just by filming their reactions, like these videos can really take off and go viral, and it's just amazing. Like,
Yeah.
through very little very little marketing budget, they've gotten a good amount of just organic traction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you planning to do for them?
So I'm just in the initial phases of studying their online presence, their website. Do they have an email newsletter? Could that be written better, more appealing to people? I could help them with search engine optimization.
Mhm.
Like how well do they rank on Google searches
Mhm.
for like I'm tired of tuning my drums, or faster way to tune drums,
Yeah.
or any sort of Google search that might be related.
Yeah.
And you could do this cool thing where you could, even if someone's searching a similar product, like there's a drum tuning tool called Drum Dial.
Mm.
If someone searches Drum Dial, you could do a paid Google search ad that puts you at the top
Right. Yeah.
whenever someone searches that.
Yeah.
These are just some ideas off the top of my head.
Cool.
But basically, like, it's interesting because their business objective is they need to get their kit into retailers.
Right.
And so it's a two-pronged approach. First, they have to get massive brand awareness,
Right.
which social media is really great at.
Yeah.
So putting out lots of videos, hopefully one goes viral. You then turn to retailers and say, look, people are asking for this. Like, people are really excited about this.
Mm.
And the more like brand clout you have, the more likely a retailer is to stock those drums.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with that. That sounds fun.
Thanks, man.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank my guest, Marco Frey.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was really fun. Hope you all enjoyed this conversation. We'll be back soon with some more episodes, and thanks again for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.